If you've been employed for a while now, you know there's no such thing as the ideal job. So there's no such thing as the ideal candidate either. Okay, so the idea in the job interviews would be to learn as much as you can about the candidate and eventually to find their weaknesses, potential question marks about them going, applying for a job. And the most common way interviewers find this would be to put pressure on the candidate to ask uncomfortable questions on the idea that the candidate will crack under pressure and eventually will spill the beans. Well, in this video I'm going to present you a completely different approach to open up a candidate. In fact, I did this recently with someone I worked with, and it was pretty much unintentional. Okay, so the process to open up this candidate would be a two-step process. So the first step here would be to ask them a personal question, preferably a question they will very much enjoy answering. For example, I have this candidate after having a conversation with them for a few minutes. What makes you laugh? Okay, and I believe this question was one that they really enjoyed answering. What an interesting question. Nowadays, my 10 and 12 years olds make me laugh the most, watching them as they grow. And, it continued with a very enjoyable answer, right? So this was a question the candidate enjoyed answering. It was on a personal note. It made them feel relaxed, right? Perfectly fine example. Now, the second question I asked this candidate, in the past year, what have you been mostly dissatisfied with, right? And they simply went something online. So, well, in the past year, I've been dissatisfied with quite a few things. Thing number one, I could have done better with this, and that. Then on the other thing, I could have had better success in my role because the company did this and that and that. And then thing number three, they were unsatisfied in the past year professionally. I'm talking about. So essentially, they just threw me 3 failure stories in one answer, without even asking him for 3 failure stories. Now, in the end, he tried to save face, by adding a few learnings here and there, but the damage has already been done. Why? Well, in a behavioral interview, the definition of a behavioral interview is that they look at your past experiences on the reasoning that if you've done this over and over and over again, you'll be able to do this well in your job. Whereas if you're talking to me about 3 recent failures, chances are that's not going to work out well for you in your next row, right? Because those failures, one could argue that they are a bit dangerous if they only happened just a few months ago. Also, the main reason why someone would ask a failure story in a job interview would be for you to sell yourself on your learnings, right? And I advise people talk about their learnings half of their answer. This is when compared to a candidate who would open up and give me 3 failures without much learnings, right? So understand the context here. First, they open up the candidate with what makes you laugh? What do you enjoy the most about your job? Let's have a personal conversation if you want. And then they subtly throw a behavioral question, a business question at you on the reason that you will spill the beans, right? If you remember what I said at the beginning of this video, there's no such thing as the ideal candidate, as there's no such thing as the perfect job, right? So this is when compared to the opposite, the uncomfortable interviewing technique, where they would simply ask you, Dan, we all have failures. Can you tell me about the time when you failed? And what did you learn from it? So they could even ask you if they could even help you if they wanted to, by not just mentioning the question, so it's easy to understand. So behavioral question is asking for a failure story, And furthermore, they're even not interested in your learnings from that failure, right? So notice this approach of guiding you through the process, right? Versus versus the other approach that they make you speak, they make you talk about things you wouldn't otherwise be willing to say, right? So I hope you found this useful, and thank you very much for watching.